All right, welcome everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to the first office hours of 2024. I am Sarah Krom, the managing partner of SKC and Co CPAs, and I am so excited today to be here for today's topic with my two guests. We have my partner Andrea Diaz and Caitlin Smith, and we're going to meet them in just a few seconds. But first, we have a few housekeeping issues. We're going to do a few polls throughout the hour to make sure our audience is still with us and engaged. Brittany, our marketing coordinator, will be monitoring the chat, and we always like to make this as interactive as possible. So please chat in your thoughts, questions, or share your stories with the group. But let's jump in for now. So as I said, our first office hour for 2024, but it's also our first office hour with all three SKC partners together, and it's Caitlin's debut on office hours. So it's a pretty exciting first episode for 2024. We're coming to you today to share the lessons that not only we've learned as business owners ourselves, but also what we've observed over the years working with our business owner clients. So we'll get started with just a few brief background introductions so you could get to know the three of us a little bit better. So I will start myself. I started my career in January of 2005, and I graduated from college in South Jersey, and I worked in a small firm for about 6 years. I came north in 2010 and became a partner at SKC in 2015. In 2016, I made managing partner. And for those of you doing the math, that makes this my 20th tax season, which kind of sounds crazy to me. But nevertheless, here we are. Andrea, on to you. Why don't you give a brief introduction of your background?
Good morning, everybody. So excited to be here today. Thank you, Sarah. So I started my career at a Big Four. Actually, prior to Big Four, I was at Merrill Lynch before Merrill Lynch was bought by Bank of America, which was in the early 2000s. And then I went to a Big Four, KPMG, then did a small rotation back to private accounting, then back into public accounting throughout 2000s. I came to SKC in 2016, and I became a partner in the beginning of 2020. So if all of you are trying to figure out what time that was, it was about 2.5 months before COVID. So a little bit sink or swim as a leader.
Baptism by fire, I like to say.
Exactly.
Caitlin, how about you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin Smith. This is my 16th tax season. I've been at SKC for about 12 years. This is my second year as partner. Before SKC, I started at a mid-sized firm, and I actually was in their healthcare segment. So I'm best known for the healthcare, dental, vet space, but I do work with all small business.
Awesome. Terrific. So excited. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. We all get to work closely together all the time, so I know this is going to be a very content-rich office hours for all of you. We want to kick off with a poll just to kind of get the pulse of the audience so that we know who we are talking to. So if you are a business owner, please answer the poll, whether or not you are a solopreneur, whether or not you, oh, that's an old question. I see a question on business operations. We'll get the right one up there. So the question should be whether or not you are a solopreneur, a 2-owner company, a 3-owner company, or 4 or more. There we go. You solopreneurs out there, I can't tend to refer to you as the folks who are on the island and feel like you're by yourselves and nobody's out there to support you. So if you could just take a few seconds to answer the poll, and then we can kind of just get an idea of who we have in the audience today. All right, so we have a pretty good mix of either folks that are solos or 4 or more, and then a couple in between. Very good and very interesting. So we do have today broken out into a couple of key topics, and the first topic we're going to jump into is people. So it doesn't really matter the type of business that you run or that you own. People are really at the heart of every business, whether the people are members of your team, your support staff, customers, your vendors. It really all comes down to people. So we're going to start by talking about your team. And Andrea, we're going to start with you of one lesson as a business owner that you learned about your team.
I've learned a lot of lessons over the last few years, but I think the biggest one and most important is understanding them is really key. I think frustration comes from a lack of understanding. So whether it's understanding their communication style or what motivates them or what they enjoy, they're not just employees, they're people, and they want to be heard and seen and valued on their terms. I found that the DISC profiles that we use have been wildly successful and useful in working with people, in how we work with our team members, but also how they work together and how to resolve between team members, because not everybody is the same, and but everybody is equally as valuable. So I think understanding people and getting to know them as humans has been the most valuable lesson for me.
And you made a couple of great points there. First being there's many lessons that we've all learned. Even Caitlin, who's in her first year as partner, I'm sure had trouble just picking a few for the topics that we selected today. We tried to pick the very best for everybody, but there are, I mean, listen, I've been doing this, as I said, my 20th tax season at SKC. This, I think, is my 15th tax season at SKC. You learn every day, right? And as business owners, I think we all can sort of resonate with that. The other thing you mentioned is the DISC profiles, which I think are, I'm not plugging those, but there's lots of different personality assessments and team evaluations that are out in the marketplace. We just happen to use the DISC ones. But what it also allows us to do, not only get to know each individual team member that we have, but it also allows us to look at the team as a whole, right? And sort of plot where everybody is, so we can really work towards getting a complete team, right? So filling in the gaps of everybody can't be like one person, that would kind of not be the most effective or productive team. Everybody's gonna kind of have a little bit of their own, personality and balance out the wheel, because the chart that we have with the DISC profile is actually a wheel overall. So it's a very interesting tool that we use, part of the onboarding process. Awesome. Love that. So my biggest lesson is really around communication. And I used to think that sharing something once or twice and maybe even 3 times was enough. And that could be through a meeting or an email or just conversation. It probably took me 7 years to understand that there is no such thing as over communication. And when we do onboarding at SKC, our new team members have heard that from me over and over and over, that there is no such thing as over communication until someone tells you, you can stop telling me that, I understand it. And in all of my years, that has never happened. If there's a specific message, I think that you want to convey as a business owner, especially if it's very important, do it over and over again in different ways. Because to Andrea's point, where everyone's different, everybody hears things differently, and everybody takes things in from their own perspective and their own experiences, and you don't share those. So you don't really know that what you're trying to communicate is necessarily heard by the recipient. As a leader, it's our job to make sure that we convey the message and the information that we want to pass along is actually received. And that lands on us as the leader, not the team. The one thing that I've heard not that long ago that I really, really love about communication is that it's judged at the listener's ears and not at the communicator's mouth, or not at the speaker's mouth. And I think that's kind of a really humbling way to look at it, that, it's our job to really relate to and make sure that our message and communications are received by the team. And I've also recently learned how important it is to explain to the team why you make some of the decisions and the choices that you make, because that really speaks to transparency and connects with the team at a whole new people level. So I think coupling the communication with the deeper understanding is really what makes communication the most successful. Caitlin, how about you?
Well, you and Andrea kind of nailed it with about the team and everything, but I did want to add also, it's so important to have good partners as your team, right? And, Andrea, Sarah, and I work very hard on our relationship and making sure we communicate and get along, and it really helps the whole organization run better.
I mean, it's interesting too, because we're all so different, right? I mean, we have very different strengths, and, we've done DISC assessments ourselves, and we've done different kind of 360 evaluations, and things that come back are that the 3 of us are all very, very different, which again goes back to, if you have a leadership team or a management team that is well-rounded and has different skill sets and the ability to kind of balance each other out, that's really where you get the most success and sort of the most efficiency and productivity. And I think we're very lucky that we have that. And it's something I know that the three of us have talked about as we continue to grow and bring on new partners and work our bench to, the next layer of management or leadership, that we make sure that we're conscious of that, to ensure that we have plenty of diversity in not only the individuals that we bring up, but in our personality and our strengths as well.
I think we actually read a book in our book club one time. What was it? Shut Up and Listen.
That was a book that we read. I remember.
and it was the gentleman who owns, oh gosh, I'm not going to remember, but he talks very in depth about having partners who are very different. And you don't want partners who are like you, because your strengths, you don't need your strengths. You need to cover for your weaknesses. And Caitlin, you're 100% right. The team that the three of us make is also extremely important, and making sure that our relationship is great is key to making sure that our organization runs well.
That was the book that I listened to on Audible, and I felt like he was yelling at me as he was reading the book.
Yeah, well, he said, shut up and listen. Yeah.
Right. He was very on theme when he did the audiobook for it. Okay, great. So still staying on the people topic, let's turn and look a little bit to the outside of our organization, right? So our clients or our prospects, being out in the world with other people, what have you guys learned in the business owner role from serving these two constituencies as business owners? Caitlin, let's start with you.
So I want to bring up, when I first started out, my clients didn't really want to speak to me or interact with me. They didn't want to hear about their taxes. They didn't want to hear about their accounting. They only wanted to speak to the partner. And that bothered me so much, because I was doing all this work and I'm like, but you don't want to hear from me. You don't want to like interact with me. So over time, and especially now as a partner, like I am very mindful of keeping my team on those meetings, on those calls, involved with my clients, so that we're all communicating, and that my clients don't only trust me, but they trust my team as well. And I think it's so powerful, because it's not just one voice, it's all of us. So I really love that. And from a prospect, I also bring my strategic partners into that realm, which are financial advisors, attorneys, and such. That too, I have a different mindset now as a business owner. I'm listening in a different way, of hearing about their business or their ideas, and then I bring those back to our business and my clients as well.
That's a great point that you mentioned about bringing the team together. I mean, that's not only valuable for their training experience, but it's also important to reframe their position, if you will, in front of, clients or prospects, that it's not just the partner. And, at SKC, we do sell ourselves as a team, and no one should have sort of just one relationship with the partner. There's definitely, the support of everyone behind us, and having those folks in the meetings with us is very, very valuable. So I think that's something we can all do a little bit more of.
And I know on a lot of prospect calls, that's usually one of their questions, of if it's just you, or you're not around, who do I contact? And that's, I always talk about my team, because if I'm sick or on vacation or not in a meeting, they contact my other teammates.
Yeah. And I've gotten a question too of, do I get you, right? If you're on the prospect call, people say, do I get you, or are you going to pass me off to somebody else? So it goes both ways, where either way it works, having a team, right? And the more people that can help support and serve the client, the better that it can be for everybody. What about you, Andrea?
Again, a lot of lessons learned, right? It's hard to narrow it down, but I think some of the biggest are that, being a business owner is not for the faint of heart. There are peaks and valleys all the time. Some days you feel like you're on top of the world and we own it, and this is what I was put on earth to do. And other days I feel like I'm knee deep in mud and can't move forward even an inch. But all business owners go through this. And as Caitlin said, listening to their stories and their triumphs and their struggles and how easily they share them. What fascinates me about business owners is their resiliency and their fortitude to constantly show up and keep going. And that's why I love working with entrepreneurs. They inspire me. They genuinely share about their struggles. And I truly believe that most entrepreneurs want to see others succeed. They understand what it's like to climb that mountain, and you never stop climbing that mountain.
Until you retire, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know many entrepreneurs that actually retire. They just sell one business and buy another or start another.
Again.
So, yeah.
Exactly. It's kind of like an addiction, I think.
It is.
but fortitude and sort of that grit is definitely a characteristic of the entrepreneur. And, you know, Brittany and I were meeting yesterday to brainstorm about Small Business Month that's coming up in May. And we were talking about the statistic that, of course, we didn't find at the time, but it talks about how many businesses don't make it past the first year, the second year, and then all the way to, I think it goes out like 7 to 10 years. And it really speaks to the characteristic of business owners to grind it through and grind it out, and those that stay in it for decades at a time, at least even 1 decade or more, you know, really have that fortitude. And it is energizing for us to be able to work with them. And, you know, there's days where I'll say, okay, I had nothing but client meetings today and it was really energizing and I feel like I really contributed and I helped, but I also got a lot of energy from hearing their stories, which is important when, as Andrea puts it, you sometimes feel like you're trudging through mud. So I think for me, the biggest lesson is a little bit similar to what Caitlin had mentioned in her lesson. And it actually, the lesson came out of a struggle for me. And when I made partner, I was 2 months away from being 32. And what was surprising to me were the assumptions that people would put on me because of that. So I guess it was perhaps the combination of being female and being younger, that people would ask me if I was the daughter of our founding partner, which to me implied that that was why I was in the position I was in. I've had people ask me if I was just the face of the firm and not the decision maker. But it was also a struggle in some cases to look younger and to be able to earn the respect and prove that I had the competency to provide the value to my clients, who, you know, at that time were probably somewhere around 20 years older than I was. I think I wasn't expecting to have people say things like that, that when I received statements like that, it was very hurtful to me, whether they intended it to be or not. And I think that the lesson for me in that was to not only what to necessarily expect from people, but also how to handle myself with it. And I guess sort of reprogram my mind to not get hung up on some of the comments or the issues that other people would sort of project onto me. I mean, for those of you that know me, I've clearly gotten over that, but that was one of the really surprising things, right? I was so excited to have made partner. I was so excited to, you know, to Caitlin's point, that my clients were, you know, celebratory with me because I'd worked with them, and you do for some reason become instantly different in their eyes, even though the day before you were the same person that had serviced them for the last 6 years. It's a very strange dynamic. But I really just wasn't ready for people to, you know, kind of squash my happy bubble at the time, I guess. And again, I don't think it was necessarily their intention, but it really was more of a sort of a life lesson for me at the time, that you have to not let other people's issues or thoughts or comments weigh you down, and sort of take away the shine. And it was, you know, again, for those of you that know me, I got over it. I'm fine. Please don't feel bad for me. But it was just one of those things where I'm like, boy, I wonder if this is a me thing or if other people get this. And if so, how do I make sure that I never make somebody feel like this? And that was just such an unexpected lesson, I guess, is the best way that I can put it.
What's so ironic is that in so many recent prospects and new client meetings, they all very much enjoy the youth of our leadership team, because they know we're not going anywhere for a long time, that we can be with them till they sell their business and through their business. So it's now, I think, viewed mostly as a positive, versus what you and Kate have experienced kind of in the when you first became partner.
And it's a couple things about that too. I think at first, right, people are kind of like, wow, all right, are you going to make it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and after a certain amount of time goes by and you prove that you do make it, it's like, okay, you know, she's got street cred and whatever it is, you know, whether it's me or somebody else or the three of us together. I think there's an element of that, okay, let's see how she really does. But to your other point about the clients really connecting and even prospects connecting with the youth of our leadership team, I think that in some ways it's kind of an anomaly to be able to successfully transition to sort of that second generation of ownership. And, listen, throughout the years that we've all worked together, lots of our clients have sold or tried to transition, however that, ending plan looks for them. And there's an emotional challenge, right, to being able to retire or sell or hand over the ownership or the management or the leadership to somebody else in your organization, or somebody outside who you sell to, but you stay on as a consultant. And so I think that there's, at least in my experience talking with clients about our transitions in, they're kind of really jealous of like, how did you make that happen? How did you do it? And it's hard to let go. And entrepreneurs, as you talked about, Andrea, don't like to move on and let go of this business unless they know they're moving into a next one. So I think that it's interesting to be able to prove that there is a whole new sort of generation of management and leadership team, and it is possible. I'm not going to say it's not without bumps and bruises, but it can definitely be done. And I think that's hard for business owners to see when in some cases they've, run it from the ground when it was nothing, built it all the way up to what it is, 30 some years later.
And so I'd like to extend on your the judgment and the comments from outside people, because I know that's something that you and Andrea tried to prepare me for becoming partner. And it was rough, the judgments and the comments your first year. And I know recently we did an assessment, the staff made comments on us. And as much as some comments were really hard to hear, I think it was very helpful for us because it's going to help us improve ourselves. And we know what areas we need to improve on. So I know I loved that SKC did that with our team.
Yeah, I try to prepare all new people in management or partner roles for some of the things that I've gone through. Maybe we'll just start showing them this office hours as they're onboarding into new management. I did the same thing with Andrea too. And it's hard because you can hear those things, and I can certainly share the stories and the experiences that I've had. But I think until you go through it yourself and you internalize how it impacts you and how you receive it, again, because we all come from different experiences and different points of view, it's kind of like, oh man, this is what she was talking about, right? This is real. She wasn't exaggerating. So let's throw up another poll. Let's move away from people into the operations side of things, into some decision making. And as Andrea said, it's not for the faint of heart. So the risk of being a business owner. But I just want to take a pulse here with a poll. And this is something that we ask all of our clients on a regular basis of what keeps you up at night as a business owner. So we've given a couple of options there, things that we've heard over the years. And then I have a catch-all other category if it doesn't speak to you. Brittany, you can publish those results whenever you want. All right. Well, I didn't do a terrible job picking some of the multiple choice options. So it's pretty much across the board split, not so much technology. I think we're maybe a few years away from that being really what keeps people up at night. Okay, very interesting. Well, I'm going to pose this question to Caitlin and Andrea. I mean, like I said, we ask our clients this all the time. Now that you guys are officially business owners, Caitlin, we'll start with you in your first year. What keeps you up at night? And again, I'm sure you're both going to say, well, it's hard to pick just one thing. It all keeps you up at night.
It is very hard to pick one thing. I mean, I can say three off the top of my head. I know tax deadlines and deadlines in our world are constant, but those have always kept me up at night. But now that I'm more responsible for my clients and signing those tax returns and all that, that does keep me up at night. But one big thing is a client staff retention. So if a staff's not happy or a team member is not happy, that can keep me up at night because I don't want to lose them. We spend so much time training and growing and developing our relationships between us as firm members, but also with our clients, and then they trust them. So when we lose a team member, that tends to keep me up at night. It bothers me. So staff retention. And the other thing is, a lot of people know I'm very passionate and very close with my clients. And if they're having issues, that can keep me up at night. So if a client comes to me with one of their issues, necessarily, it's not a bad thing, but I'll wake up in the middle of the night having ideas of how can I help them or what can I do to help them. So I know I live with that, and sometimes that can tend to keep me up at night as well.
I would say Caitlin sleeps the least out of the three of us.
Plus,
Yes,
I have two small children.
I didn't
I
say
would agree with
why.
that.
I just said you did. Andrea, how
Yeah.
about you? What keeps you up at night as a business owner?
So, well, the last few nights it's doing this office hour. No, and most of you know that I get very anxious when speaking in public. Some people are like, really? I don't believe it, but I do. But in all seriousness, it's mostly it's making the right decisions, knowing that our decisions as leaders impact so many people internally and externally. I'm constantly thinking about if we're making the best decision in the best interest of everyone involved. And it used to keep me up so much more. But I've become more comfortable in the fact that as long as we, continue to act and always act with integrity, that while we may not always make the right decision, we'll at least be on the right path and on the right road. What has also provided me a lot more comfort is, as a team, we'll make decisions, but we also give it a week or so to really execute on it. And there have been times, right, where Caitlin and Sarah are used to this. They'll get an email 6 a.m. in the morning and I'll be like, I think we should change our mind. I don't think we should do this, or whatever the case may be. And can we talk about it at the next partner meeting? Because that's the decisions that we make. It does impact so many. It impacts not only us, the firm, but the families of the people that work for us, the families of our clients. Like, you think about how much it extends. And to me, that can be extremely overwhelming.
I think we've adopted the 24-hour rule when we make big decisions, as we come together and we brainstorm and we come up with what we think is the best. And then we say, all right, we're not going to act on this until we regroup 24 hours from now and see what Andrea has changed her mind about. No, it's not just you. We do all listen, you take it in and you don't want to ever rush into decisions. And I think it's part of what I said on the communication side of things, is that you have to, especially when you're talking about decisions that impact the team, you have to explain the why behind what led you to make this decision and why was it the one that you chose. And, think about it again. It's been a while since I've been in the employee role, but it would be so much more meaningful to hear about, well, we've thought about X, Y, and Z, and here's why we decided on Z. And I think it just brings people more into the process. Again, I use the term transparency. And I think that there's an element of making them, feel like they've not necessarily been part of the decision-making process, but that they have sort of a glimpse under the hood as to how you went about making that decision. And a lot of times that can, include factors that they didn't think of previously, and sort of helps the buy-in a little bit of being on board with what some of the decisions might be.
And a lot of our decisions always come from a good place. And I know sometimes we don't get good feedback or reactions to our decisions. And then we're like, wait, but we were trying to do this for us, all of us as a team. And I know that's been eye-opening of the reaction sometimes.
Yeah, we got better at that too, I think, because we would make a decision and we would only look at what we thought was the really awesome thing that led us to make the decision. Like, this is going to be really good because of X, Y, and Z. And then we would roll it out, and people, to Caitlin's point, would come back and say, well, what about A, B, and C? And we would be like, well, none of that matters. It's just X, Y, and Z. And we were still so excited. And I think we also, as I said, changed our decision-making process a little bit and started to say, okay, so we're really excited about this because of these reasons, but what are the things that, playing devil's advocate, how do we shoot holes in this? Or what are the unexpected questions we're going to get from the team, or what might they not understand? And I think we can always continue to improve and get better in all areas, but I think we've sort of tried to tweak that decision-making process through some of, as I call them, the bumps and the bruises that we've sustained along the way. So for me, I try hard to not let anything keep me up at night. But with 2024 being my 10th year as partner, there have been a handful of times when I was kept up at night. And those two, reasons typically fall into two categories. And the first is the unexpected exit of partners. And believe it or not, I'm starting to think it's me, because that's happened 3 times now during my time as partner. So I'm thinking it's me and not everybody else, but mostly that's because of the unknown surrounding an event like that. And, you know, to Andrea's point, it's not only what's going to happen to the team, but it's the clients, and it's, you know, the whole sort of umbrella that SKC encompasses, which is a pretty, you know, widely cast net. But there's just certain things that are out of your control and not planned. And, you know, we start every year with our strategic plan and our goals, and okay, what's on the horizon? What can we foresee and what can we plan for? And some things just come out of left field and you can't have any plan for them. You know, certainly nobody had the plan for COVID-19 and what to do when the pandemic hit the way that it did. And, you know, there's lots of things as business owners that happen to us that way. It can be very anxiety producing and nerve wracking. But I guess my advice here is to really take stock in the areas that you can control and plan for those to combat whatever the potential unknowns could be that are coming at you in any given time.
And I know, Sarah, when I became partner, we would meet like once a month. And I remember saying like, but don't we need to communicate or talk more? Like, I like to be more connected. And I know that we changed that to weekly, and it keeps us all on the same page, and us all stronger in the relationship.
It does. And it allows for us to, we used to have one very long monthly partner meeting, and now we do shorter ones every week. And then a, you know, more robust one where the financial piece of it is brought into it. But, you know, to Caitlin's point, it's, listen, we're 25 people. We have 2 offices. There's a whole lot going on, even at a firm our size. And we want to be current. We want to know what's going on. We want to be on top of, you know, oh, did you hear so-and-so's, you know, father is sick, or so-and-so's son is sick, and how do we, you know, kind of keep everybody informed so that we can show up as our best selves with, you know, the information that we might need out there. So having those check-ins, I think, you know, every week we're all on the same page, and it sort of level sets us with, hey, what happened? Or I was out 2 days last week, you know, what did I miss? That kind of thing.
And Sarah, to your point of controlling what you can control and being prepared for the unexpected, one of the biggest lessons I've learned from the, you know, unexpected exiting of partners, and the lesson that I now I'll say preach is define the rules of engagement prior to, because so much of what came out of that is, well, what did we have planned for what does our agreement say? What are we supposed to do in this particular situation? So having, you know, if you're engaging or bringing on a partner or forming a new entity or whatever that may be, it's define the rules of engagement. And even though you may think, well, that'll never happen, it could happen.
And we've all seen it happen, you know, at our firm or at clients.
Or otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know, you know, doing your due diligence, who you're going into business with. And I mean, look, you guys are my work wives, like we're married. So it's important.
And that's such a great point for clients or prospects. I mean, I equate having a partnership or an operations agreement with clients to not having a will, right? Or not having somebody in place to take care of your kids if something happens to you and your spouse, right? It's that dire. It doesn't seem like it in your world. It probably seems like, oh, we'll get to it, or we have a good relationship. But there is, honestly, it's like, it's truly the first thing you need to do whenever you go into business with somebody is make sure that you have that partnership or that operations agreement in place, and you've got a good legal team behind you to, first of all, honestly, explain it to you, because so many of the nuances are like, this is 15 pages. Can you tell me what I really need to know? Or can you explain this to me in layman's terms? But it's important because it takes an element of the, oh my gosh, what now if something does happen, right? Because all of that is clearly laid out in the agreement of, if this happens, then this is triggered, or this is the formula for buyout, or whatever the need is to go to the document and say, okay, what do we do next? it all should be outlined before you even start day one operating a business together. And it really is. I try to scare clients into saying it's the equivalent of, God forbid you and your spouse died in a car accident and you had no one to take care of your kids. Like, you need to have that in place, from day one.
Absolutely.
And so I guess the second category of things that keeps me up at night is whenever I need to let a member of the team go, whatever the reason is behind having to do that. Sometimes, it's for cause, sometimes it's for, workflow reasons, but the impact that I know that that's going to have on somebody's life is the reason why it keeps me up at night. There is no best way to deliver that news. And for the last 10 plus years, when I've had to do it, you don't get any better at it. And that feeling never goes away. It never gets easier. But there are ways of empathizing with people who are sitting on the other side of the table that, can make it a little bit more bearable for them. But those are the things that usually keep me up at night, is knowing that that's coming, and knowing that in so many days I have to have this meeting with so-and-so, and that's the news that I'm going to deliver. That's kind of the biggest ache that keeps me up at night. And unfortunately, it's an inevitability, I think, of being a business owner. If you have employees, is that ultimately, you have to have, sometimes it's not that major of a conversation, but you do always have to have difficult conversations. And that's a challenge. And that's something that we didn't talk about, but is probably a relevant topic to kind of just toss around, is getting to a place of being comfortable having those difficult conversations, or being comfortable with what's a little bit of conflict, with members of your team, or even sometimes with clients. And of course, there's lots of books written on how to have difficult conversations, and courses that you can take, but it really is an art form. I think that you only get comfortable with it doing it over and over and over and over again. I don't know. Do you guys have thoughts on that?
Well, I wanted to go back to the reactions of your team too, because sometimes we have to let someone go, and sometimes they're like, oh yeah, we understand your decision on that. And sometimes they don't understand the decision. So we have to go back and explain to them why it didn't work out, and our, decisions on our business.
Mm-hmm.
I
The
had,
impact that it has on the rest of the team.
Mm-hmm.
and Sarah, as our managing partner, you usually handle all things HR. But I had one experience where an employee brought me into the room and gave notice, and I was just like, "That's great, congratulations!" Like, you don't know what to say in the unknown. And I was like, "All right, anytime that there's I'll say someone leaving, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, there's ways to react to it and how others react to it. And I don't know if she had expected that reaction from me. But it's learning how to have difficult conversations on either side of that, whether you're delivering that news or receiving the news, is always trying.
Well, and I will tell you, being on both sides of that, right? Having, unfortunately, to let people go, but also being typically the one that people give notice to, you don't know how they're going to react, right? I mean, I've had people who have come to me to give notice, and then they've burst into tears. And I'm kind of like, are you sure you want to do that? Because it's a very jarring reaction. I mean, listen, that's an easier one for me, is accepting somebody's resignation than having to let somebody go, because, and your reaction, Andrea, I think was very appropriate. It is a very congratulatory thing, because they've made a decision that's in, you presume, their best interest, or the best interest of their family, or, their world. And so it's, it's something that we should be supporting. But I think it's difficult to have that reaction as the person giving that news, because I think they're expecting, like, oh my God, they're going to freak out on me because I'm giving notice. And, that could be what they're expecting. But it is always usually something that you want to be very congratulatory and celebratory. And we've said before, and we've said this to our clients, you don't really want anybody on your team who doesn't really want to be there. So if they've made that choice already, or they found another place or another home that is going to be better for them, it's much better to have that parting of ways be positive and upbeat and supportive, because for most of the cases, they've been with you for several years, and you don't want to burn those bridges, and for the most part.
Yeah, I remember years ago a staff coming to me and saying, I have this great opportunity. It's really good for me and my family, but I don't want to leave you. I know I do so much for you and you depend on me a lot. And as much as I was like, oh yeah, I really don't want you to leave, it was for them. I had to let them go, and it was the best decision for them. And actually now I have a great relationship and we do business together outside of SKC. So it was a learned lesson there.
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult. And Caitlin, just to circle back to what you had said about what that messaging is to the team, if you're ever in the unfortunate position to have to let people go, I mean, the employment attorneys basically tell you to say nothing. and that's really hard, because that's genuinely not who we are as, the values of our firm and who the three of us are as people. So you never, of course, want to badmouth people and, sort of air the dirty laundry, if you will, because no one would want that done about them. But there is an element, and there has to be a balancing act to be able to communicate, again, going back to transparency, that there was thought put into this and there were reasons why. And, please trust in the fact that I may not be able to share with you what all of the reasons were, because if the situation were reversed, you wouldn't want me to share all of those reasons with everybody. But, understand it was a decision that we had to make and execute going forward. And I think sometimes that's not enough for people, but sometimes that's all that we can say, which is unfortunate.
And like you said, not burning bridges, because there's opportunity down the road maybe to work together.
Right, definitely. I mean, certainly in public accounting, we all know what a small, tight-knit community it is. So let's talk about ourselves a little bit as business owners. I mean, we know that as business owners, we put ourselves typically towards the bottom of the priority list, because usually our business comes first and all that comes with our business. But we obviously are vital to the success and the growth and the improvement of our businesses and our companies. So if we expect our team to grow and develop, and it's important to make sure that we address the lessons that we learned ourselves about our own growth and development. So I would ask, Andrea, let's start with you. Since becoming a partner at SKC, what's the most important lesson you've learned about yourself?
So I've learned two really important lessons. One is that I flourish when I have structure. I very much need structure in my schedule and a lot of different aspects. And those of you who know me know that I use free to focus structure. And I have done significantly better, I think, as a leader since I have that structure in place. But what I've also learned is that the characteristics and the skills and behaviors that got me to making partner are not the same characteristics, skills, and behaviors that make me a good leader. And that's been a very humbling experience, one that I've enjoyed, but it's not always easy to swallow the criticism pill. But I'm a lifetime learner and committed to making continuous, personal and professional growth. So it's something that I will continue to work on. I've also learned that the more that I travel and get outside and take up hobbies that have nothing to do with accounting, that the better human I become, and the better human that I am for me, the better I am for my team.
Great. Caitlin?
One lesson I've learned is delegation. I am awful at delegation, and I've been trying really hard to work on it. And I know that I've always just had my head down and did all the work, always said yes to every project. I wanted to learn. I would always be one of the top hours in the firm. My goal was to become a partner, right? That was my, goal in life. And now that I'm there, now I'm seeing, oh, I can't do it all. You shouldn't rely on one person to just do like that project or master at that project. You need to delegate, teach others how to do it. So I've learned the importance of delegation, that it shouldn't all be on one person. Everyone shouldn't rely on that one person to do things, and delegating to my staff gives them the opportunity to learn and to grow. So I know that's one thing that was, eye-opening for me.
Yes.
and I'm working on it. It's work in progress.
I will tell you, because you know this, we've called you out on it. You still had the most hours in the firm last year as your first year as partner. Incrementally down every year is the goal. But it's
Progress,
hard.
not perfection.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Just
it's
move in
been
the right
progress.
direction.
Delegated a lot. I work with all the team members and I've made a lot of strides, but there's still so much more to do. I know I've taken classes on it and read about it. So just got to work on it.
Baby steps, baby steps.
We all have things to work on, Kate.
Yep. I would say for me, this is probably the one that's the biggest thing that I could pick the most different lessons from, but I would have to say self-care is probably the number one in this category. And it kind of really connects, Andrea, with what you said about, kind of getting the humbling criticisms back that, what that sort of hard drive and the grit to get us to the level of partner, right, is not really what translates into making us good leaders. And you don't really have, in my experience, you don't really have the ability to sort of marinate on that and reflect on that and make some of those changes unless you give yourself time, right? If you're constantly doing, and you never take that time, and I think, Andrea, this is a little bit where you were going when you talked about traveling and hobbies and things like that. If you don't take the time to sort of shut your mind from just the doing and the checking off of tasks, then you don't ever really get to recharge. So for me, it's that element of self-care. However that manifests itself for you is taking time for yourself to be away from what maybe the typical day-to-day is so that you can have those reflective moments. I mean, if anybody follows John Maxwell at all, he wrote a book, but also uses the term level 5 leader. And that's really what, in my opinion, I strive to be, which is a level 5 leader. And you need to be able to be at your best to show up as a level 5 leader, because it's very much involved around, embracing your team and knowing them on a very personal level and building that trust. And all of those relationships take a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of energy. And so, if you're not at your best to show up that way, then you're no good for the team, right? So intentionally, I think making that time is not only what's important to me, but it's also what's crucial for all of us to show up as the best versions of ourselves for our team and for each other.
And setting boundaries too. I know that was a lesson learned. I know my staff are way better at boundaries than I am. And it's something that I'm working on, like maybe not always being available as much as I used to be. I have a family now, so setting those boundaries is very important too.
Yeah, that helps with the mental health of separating yourself
Just
from
connecting
every day. Exactly. Andrea, were you going to add to that?
No, I was just going to say that in Free to Focus, they have a whole compartment, and you both have read the book about playing. You have to give your mind that the space. Often when I travel, that's when I have some of my biggest aha moments, because I'm not sitting in front of my computer working or on call or with clients or what have you. It's when I separate and I'm not thinking at all about it. It's like a light bulb goes off and I'm like, oh, it's right there. It's so giving your, as you said, the space to play, to just get away, whatever that is. And I also think being outside is hugely, Sarah knows I started a little garden this year. I plan to expand that.
Wasn't that little?
I plan to expand it
over her
into
entire porch.
But there's something about the being outside in the fresh air and being grounded with earth that really can, for me, changes your whole spirit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Andrea used to have her best thoughts right before she went to bed and right when she woke up. So she keeps a notebook by her nightstand. You at one point had one in the shower. I don't know if you still do that, but
I don't have it. No. That was a great idea, though. I mean, invention that's okay.
So I think, with most things, I do like to end on a high note, even though I said, as any business owner knows, there's bumps and bruises along the way, but it is insanely rewarding, because of all of the positive things that you get to do as a business owner. So I just want to pose my final question to my partners is, what is the best thing for you about being a business owner? And either one of you can go first, whichever one wants to.
I'll start. I mean, being a business owner is never boring, so I love that. But we do wear a lot of hats, and I think for me, it's the impact we have on so many lives. You know, it's our staff, our clients, the industry. We have so much to give, and I love that feeling when my staff are thriving or my clients are doing well and they're happy. So I get a lot of satisfaction out of that.
I'd have to echo that exact thing. It's using the platform that we have, no matter how big or small, to do good in everybody, all the lives that we touch. My goal as an accountant really at the highest level is to leave the accounting industry and everybody that I've touched in it better than when I met them. So, but it's just doing the best we can and, making the biggest and best impact where we can.
Yeah, I mean, I think interesting because we didn't compare notes on this. We kind of all sort of have the same answer to this. For me, the best part comes down to really what our why is at SKC. And as a firm, our why is to help business owners become the best version of themselves. Obviously, through that journey, we are all working at becoming the best versions of ourselves, and we hope that our team members are doing the same. We kind of plan for that and create a culture around that. So, as the managing partner, I guess the best part for me is contributing to our team leveling up, to moving closer to being the best versions of themselves as professionals, as parents, spouses, friends, overall as people. I mean, that's why I show up every day for the team and for my partners and for my clients, because, there's that saying that rising tides raise all boats. And I think that if you surround yourself with the community of people that are like-minded in always striving to get a little bit better and supporting each other to get better, it really is contagious and very, very satisfying. And so I think it's pretty cool that we all had that same kind of answer, even though we did not rehearse these questions. I love that. So ladies, any closing thoughts before we kind of do a wrap up for today? We hit it all. We got it all in an hour. That's great. I do want to thank you guys all for being here today. I was very happy that we got to bring to the world all three of the SKC partners at one time. If you are interested in any future topics for office hour, please email Brittany or throw it into the chat, because we want to keep these episodes as meaningful and as valuable to you. So do provide whatever feedback you have. We do have some interesting things going on social media. So we do have our business owner series, which is coming out every 2 weeks. I think we started last Friday as the first one, and it's the three of us giving 2-minute or less videos about various different topics that we've encountered as business owners that are meaningful to us. I think the first one we launched was mine on culture. I know Andrea did one on sort of your support system and your dream team of your board of directors. So stay tuned. I believe next Friday will be the launch of the next one on that, and there's 6 altogether. We're also doing a fun Mystery Mug Monday social media campaign. So the first Monday of every month, we are posting pictures of whatever the three of us are using as coffee mugs on that day. And whoever is the first to guess correctly wins a Starbucks gift card. And at the end of the year, we will be throwing all of the winners from each month into a drawing, and that person is going to receive a grand prize. So just a little fun to get to know us better and sort of keep everybody engaged on social media. So check us out there. Also sign up for our bi-weekly newsletter, SKC 5 Things. You could do that by emailing Brittany or going to our website and signing up. We give you various different information about the local things in New Jersey and in California, because that's where our other office is, and then things about, overall federal laws and regulations that have come out as well. So thank you for joining us today. Ladies, thank you so much for sharing your insights. I wish everybody a great rest of the day and a very enjoyable weekend. Have a wonderful day.